Hey everyone, welcome back to our Financing Simplified podcast. Today I have the privilege to talk to Mario Armani, real estate agent, very big social media presence, and I've been a big follower of your content. I love what you have to say. I love your brutal honesty, and honestly, wanted to bring you on the show. Mario, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Been a real estate agent now 19 and a half years. Opened up my brokerage. It's going to be 5 years, January 24th of next year. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Just brutally honest, try to tell people the information that they need to hear versus what they want to hear, and just try to let people know right from wrong. That's it.
Keeping it on that topic between right and wrong, I think there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of conversations about the duty and the role. I don't even know if I should use the word fiduciary duty that realtors have.
Yes.
And, with what's coming out in the news recently with the, lawsuits or the pending lawsuits with realtors that, obviously the competition. Enlighten us. Tell us from your perspective what it means for you, what it means for the industry.
I absolutely love that you touched upon this topic because nobody understands it. Even the articles that were written about it, they're very difficult to understand. So the lawsuit, basically, there's a lot of unfair practices that a specific individual felt is happening in the real estate industry. One of which, the whole situation with bidding wars. But mainly, his argument was that whenever there's a listing, so how it works is that the seller decides how much commission they pay in total. So as an example, if they're selling their house, if they wanted to, and the listing agent was agreeing to the commission, he could agree to virtually $1 if he wanted to. Obviously, nobody would do that. But basically what happens is the seller advises how much commission they're going to pay to the cooperating broker, to the brokerage of the buyer. So where the problem exists is that there is no set rules. So the industry standard is 5%, but there's nowhere in writing that says that every listing that comes out, the commission needs to be 5%. So what this gentleman is arguing basically is that the fact that the listing brokerage is advertising the commission that is getting paid, let's say, for example, if the commission wasn't 2.5%, there is a possibility that they could, or like the buying realtor could sway that person from that property to another property. So it's an unfair practice.
Understood. So basically, we've seen this happen all the time. We look at these purchase agreements. It's listed right there. They're offering up 2.5, 2.25, which obviously is an enticement for the person bringing the buyer to the table, right?
Yes.
And I guess this is where the conversation sort of begins is,
yes,
if that wasn't publicized, then it would be a more fair practice because nobody knows what they're getting paid.
In essence.
But in essence, what is that? How does that impact the person? Like, what if there's nothing on the table? Like, is there something in there that, maybe the common folk, the person that's there listening doesn't get? Like,
I can talk about this topic all day. So I think there's going to be big problems here because let's say, for example, if they change the rules where they say, well, the listing realtor, he gets paid a commission, whatever he agrees to with the seller, and then the buying commission, because that's, I think, where they want to take it. The buying realtor has to pay the buying realtor out of pocket. The problem that's going to happen with that is the same thing that happens right now on the listing side. So as an example, there are what you call discount realtors that will list your property for a very, very low fee. What happens in those cases? In the majority of those cases, there's no marketing because obviously since they're not making as much money, they're not going to be investing into your property. Usually that person doesn't have the most experience. And thirdly, usually they don't care because they're in the volume business. They're not looking to do the best transaction every single time. Now, what happens on the other end, now this person's going to be buying a property. What is the realtor going to be offering that particular buyer? Are they really going to give them proper customer service? Are they really going to care now that they're going to be getting paid much, much less? Because the same thing that happens on the selling side is going to happen on the buying side, where the buyer, since they got to pay for it now, they're going to be negotiating their commission with the buying realtor. So I personally think it's going to be a complete disaster. Now, do I think that there might need to be some type of adjustment in commissions? I do, because realistically speaking, 5% has been the standard now for many, many years. And obviously when there were properties at the majority, let's say were 800, 900,000, now you have properties that are the average is a lot higher than that. Obviously, this now means that realtors are getting paid a lot more commission. So, for example, areas like Hamilton or Niagara, the standard is actually 4%, which means that each realtor is getting 2%. And obviously, when you're talking thousands of dollars, it's a big difference, right?
No, and I agree. I think, as I said, 5% was always the standard. When we're talking to clients, it's like that's sort of your starting point when we're doing our calculations on the buy and sell. You're trying to figure out how much net proceeds they're going to come out with. But obviously, that conversation is up in the air with the relationship, what they're willing to do. But you brought up a really good point in this whole conversation: is the ethic that you're going to get when you're hiring someone for that price. I'm a firm believer you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
And I believe in this market more than ever. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but now you're going to show your shine's going to come out.
Yes.
If you're a seasoned vet in the industry, you know exactly how to do a marketed property. You're going to be able to still do well in this downturn potentially of a market, because not only are you putting the right work into it, but you're marketing the property. And I know we were talking about discount people out there, and we don't want to get into names, but obviously I've
Sure,
heard,
you don't want to get into names?
I'm pretty sure, because I don't know if we want to get sued or anything like that.
I'm busting your chops.
No, funny thing is,
Yes.
you want to hear a funny story? One of the major OGs in our industry was basically, shooting down one of these individuals in our industry as well. So one of these mortgage brokerages that were doing business, but they were jewelry. I'm not going to say any names. Most of us can probably put those two together. Anyway, he talked the shit out of this guy. And literally, he got a cease and desist letter, like basically being sued for the defamation. So I'm like, I don't want that stuff on my book. But yes, there's discount people out there. I know a lot of people that come and say, "Oh, I'm going to hire someone," and I'm like, "Are you sure about that? Are you sure?" And literally, then they come back. It's like, "Oh, my neighbor sold and this and that," and I'm looking and I'm like, "I don't even know your property was listed." And then you look at their signs. You drive by. It's like, how old is that?
What the problem is, Anthony, is that people do not value real estate agents, mortgage brokers. They don't value us. There's so many of us. The bar is so low to get into the industry that you have a lot of people that are just fly-by-night people. But I have a video coming out next week, and I'm going to kind of share a little bit of the video. And it talks about how right now there's 97,000 realtors. But for everybody at home that doesn't know this, out of all those 97,000, 5% is the ones who are doing 95% of the business. So if this business was so easy, why are all 97,000 not doing well? Why is it only a very small percentage that are actually transacting? Because it's an extremely difficult business.
It's always been that rule where either 10% of the business is done by 90% of the business is done by 10% of the individual. Even in our industry, it's no different. Everybody thinks that they can come in and they always see the end result, right? Oh, look what he's done. But they don't understand what goes in, what sacrifices have been made to get to that point. How you constantly are trying to evolve your business. Your business is your baby. And I know, and I said, watch your videos. I understand. I said the truth. It's very important to be truthful to people. It's very important to be ethical and explain to people the reality of the situation, because most people don't know. And I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine, and I said, I don't know how some of these people in our industry, you said the barrier to entry is dirt cheap. If you think it's bad for the real estate industry, the mortgage industry is even worse. It's like you can literally go to a weekend course and come out on the Monday and you can write a mortgage with no experience. I took 2 years to learn from my mother how to properly be, and I came from the banking background to do this actual job. And it's insane how somebody's going to put that trust in someone. And you know what my buddy said to me? He goes, if that person just says certain keywords or catchphrases, and they know 1% more than the person that they're talking to, they're considered
okay.
They're,
See, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the good mortgage brokers, because what the public doesn't realize is that what mortgage brokers mainly do is all behind the scenes. So being a mortgage broker, that if you were a scumbag, you can screw over a lot of people. And the only way that people are going to realize is down the line when they need to sell their property, or at the time of closing the property, where they're there in front of the lawyer about to sign, and you're closing in a day or two, and you have no choice but to sign on that dotted line. So I always tell people, listen, A real estate agent is really important, having somebody great on your side. But a mortgage broker is even more so important because they're the ones who can ruin you. And at the end of the day, they're getting you the money. Without them, you cannot complete the transaction.
It's true. The financing is part, and I really appreciate the plug. And I do agree with you 100%. We've always been at that. We've never have issues, knock on wood, where clients have been bamboozled. We almost overdo it to some regard. It's like, they're like, okay, Ant, we trust you. Don't worry. And I'm like, no, it's very important that you understand what you're signing, what you're agreeing to, so that when you get to the lawyer's office, it's all explained to you. Because even the smallest thing about registration of title, how joint ownership, tenants in common, all that stuff is for a lot of people, they don't know this stuff. They're going through that journey for the first time, and the problem is the financial literacy journey, which we can touch on. But I really agree with you on the sense of why the team. It's not only the realtor, the mortgage broker, it's the lawyer. It's associating yourself with the proper network.
See, it's even the self-employed side of the transaction, and that's kind of like where I feel that a great mortgage broker is gonna make the difference. Like in a perfect world, if a transaction is perfect and everything is smooth, you can plug in any realtor, any mortgage broker, and they should be able to do a decent job. Some obviously are going to do a better job than others, but it's all, I always kind of compare it to, like, let's say you're going to have surgery. Do you want a okay doctor or you want a great doctor? Because on the outside, me and you look the same. As soon as you cut us open, we may look different. You know what I mean? And the great doctor is going to save your life, and the other one, it's a 50-50, right? I don't like taking 50-50 chances ever.
No.
So that's why I want to always make sure that I have somebody great. And even with the self-employed area, like, nothing is standard. Nothing is standard. That's why I truly believe that having a great mortgage broker is fundamental if you're buying a property.
And from your experience with when you're working with mortgage brokers and such, I think the communication is vital, especially when it comes to, like, not as you mentioned, if it's a simple deal, huge income, large down payment, plug and play, drop and go. But when you have a client that comes and they're like, okay, they're on that borderline. If the maintenance fees on their condo are just this much, or the property tax, and they're buying insured, it is so insanely delicate on putting in those offers, adding that condition. It's like
the little details matter.
People don't understand, well, but it's only $50 more. I'm like, yeah, but when your ratio is already at tipping point, that $50, that $100, it's the world of a difference, especially if you're limping in with the least amount of money.
The communication, like you said, is key. Like, for example, a mortgage broker, they'll say, well, the client is approved for this much and this much, but something like taxes or maintenance, something like let's say the mortgage broker said you're approved for this much amount of money based on $5,000 a year in taxes. And for whatever reason, if the taxes are $5,600, sometimes people, they think it's okay. Oh, it's only an extra $600. Yeah, but if you're on the cusp, it throws the ratios all off, and then you're not getting approved now. So
we've had clients that we've told them this is your max, and then they come back and say, well, we just bought for this amount. And I'm like, okay, great, you became a mortgage broker today, right? Like, how do you just make this decision? Then you have the opposite end where they're almost like, I need to know if I can do this, right? And that's the difference. Is most people always ask you the difference is, what's the difference with a, and I don't know, it's not, this episode's not about me, but we're talking about brokers. We're talking about the guy that is available on the Saturday and the Sunday. When my client says, I'm putting in an offer this weekend, and I'm like, okay, when are you putting the offer? When can I make myself available? Please let me know. Like, be on standby, because I'll bring my laptop with me if I know the client's putting in an offer, so that if there's a certain nuance that changes in that offer, if they have to come up 10 grand, or
you can let them know on the spot.
I can say, look, my ratios are still good. Or I'll say, look, you guys are good up to this point. This is your threshold, X, Y, Z. In this market, I think, as I said, the idea is that you have to want to earn the business. And I think, and you've touched upon this, is as the industry changes, we were so used to high volumes, high profits, high revenues, to an economy that's slowing down. Are people adapting to it? Or are we just changing?
I think they're adapting by force. They have no choice, right? Before we kind of jump into this topic, everything that we just talked about in the last 5 minutes, it's terrible that it's very boring, but it's so important, but nobody wants to understand it. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear it. Like, it's not sexy. So they just sweep it under the rug, right? But it's so important, and it just doesn't get talked about. But getting back to what you were saying, last year, as you know, a lot of people were still paying these cheap rates. 2023 came around. A lot of people now had to refinance. I read a stat a couple of days ago saying how many mortgages, like, I think it was like I'd be lying if I said I remembered. I screenshotted it on my phone, but it was like a ridiculous amount of money that was coming up for renewals in 2024.
And we're talking the
Yes. So if you follow the construction industry, which in my opinion, construction is extremely important in Canada.
100%.
If you talk to anybody in every facet of construction, they'll tell you that 2023 has been a very, very slow year. Why? Because a lot of those people have had to refinance. Now, you refinance, meaning you're paying a lot more money now on a monthly basis. You have a lot more disposable income. A lot of people have had no choice but to tighten their belts. That's only going to get worse in 2024. That's the reality.
100%.
If there's a real estate agent who's not telling you that information, they're full of shit. It's going to get difficult. If you're a seller, unfortunately, whatever you can get today, there's a very high likelihood that next year you're not going to be getting the same amount of money unless something miraculously happens, because as you know, COVID is a perfect example. All of a sudden, market starts tanking. What do? Drop rates like crazy. Market starts skyrocketing. So anything can happen, but if things kind of continue the way that they are now, it does not look positive.
So basically, when we're looking at the renewals, we've been a big advocate for this. I've been doing a lot of them on our personal YouTube channel for Finance Fridays. Shameless plug. Basically, we're talking about that discretionary spending. We're talking about these mortgages, this reset of mortgages, and how many Canadians are going to be feeling the pressure. A lot of them who have fixed rate mortgages are not thinking about that. And that is the biggest thing is obviously the variable rate mortgages. We all know anybody with a variable rate, adjustable or static payment, they're going to feel it or they've already felt it. But these fixed rate mortgages, as they start to renew into significantly higher rates, it's going to be a real, I don't want to say shit show, but for some who have larger mortgages,
It's going to be challenging.
Challenging. I talk to a lot of clients. The spreads in between. It's a really mixed bag of emotions for a lot of clients, because if you have a small mortgage, $200,000-$300,000, it's like, yeah, you start running the numbers at 7%. It's like, okay, it's going to be about $400. They're like, oh, okay, that's not too bad, right? Like if they have a small mortgage, but then you start getting into some people who have larger mortgages, and that's like $1,800. That's like almost $1,500, $2,000 more that they could be paying in interest. And it's how long can they hold on for? Here's the thing, and just to end off on that point, I've talked to a lot of people where they come to me and they say, Anthony, I'm in this situation, I need help. My realtor is telling me to sell, and I'm like, okay, no problem. Let's do the math. Refinance, sell. Where are you going to go? If you refinance, this is your payment. This is what you're looking at, plus utilities, so on and so forth. Talk to your realtor. Find out what a rent will cost you for you need a 4-bedroom house. You got yourself and 3 kids. Where are you going to go?
Anthony, it's crazy. I know we have to wrap up this point, but I have 10 upcoming listings coming up in the next month. So not my team, my personal 10 listings. Out of those 10 sales, only 3 of those people are buying something again. So those other 7 people, they're either relocating to a new country, moving in with family, or directly going to rent. So if that's not a sign, people are not having a good time right now.
We'll continue this. Mario, where can they find you on social media?
Armani Sells on Instagram, armanisells.ca, best place to find me.
Awesome. And you can find us on our website at intouchmortgagesolutions.com, our social media at InTouch Mortgages, and YouTube. But we're not going to let anybody go anywhere yet. We'll be back in just a few with Mario. So stay tuned. We'll see you on the next episode.